Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jeff Eggleston. I'm chairing this session. It's the last session. I can't believe we're there, to be honest, but there we go. For those of you who don't know me, I work for IBM. I work in the hardware division as one of the technical folk. So today's session is from Vaughan Marshall, who's basically going to give us a presentation on could the freely available ChatGPT AI engine answer all the mainframe skill conundrums. And as it says on the form, Vaughan is the product manager at Broadcom, but I'll let Vaughan introduce himself further. Vaughan, the session's yours. And oh, sorry, before I do that, sorry, I should have said, this session is being recorded, but one of the things that we want to actively encourage is questions and comments. What I will do is, once I hand it over to Vaughan, I'll make sure that everybody has the ability to go off mute and can interrupt. If you don't want to do that, then put it in the chat and Vaughan will answer it. So Vaughan, second time, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. So today, what I wanted to talk about was ChatGPT. Hopefully, everyone's heard about it. I certainly have been finding it harder and harder to get away from hearing about it. It's pretty amazing to think where we've come in terms of artificial intelligence, but to really be able to play with it and have it in your hands and use it has been quite exciting for me. So I'm excited about this session. And I want to talk about ChatGPT specifically in the context of mainframe and whether or not this might be the answer to the skills problem that is out there. So let's dive in. This first one just says this is an informational session. So nothing in here references any Broadcom products or anything like that. This is really just about ChatGPT and whether or not it might help with mainframe skills. So take it as that. So I thought I would start off by framing the problem, the mainframe skills gap problem. So ultimately, the gap in mainframe skills is based on a high demand for mainframe skills. Basically, if we go back a number of years, people thought at some point, maybe by 2020, now this decade, the mainframe would be gone. Of course, it's not gone. And in fact, it's alive and doing well and is a critical part of the infrastructure in some of the biggest institutions. And the reasons for that are it is very good at processing transactions and doing that in a scalable, securable way that doesn't cost so much. And because of that dependence, right, and the lack of training up new mainframers, we're facing a gap between the need and the demand. So, ultimately because we've ignored this problem for so long, we've got people that are retiring. We also have, people coming into the profession, but doing so trepidatiously, if you will. So a lot of next gen developers and practitioners in the world of IT see mainframe and they see, for instance, green screens and whatnot, and might even think, oh, this is kind of somewhat dated and maybe not a place I want to build my career. So, obviously, being in the world of mainframe, I know that's not true. I know that the mainframe is, very much a modern, relevant platform that continues to evolve, just like everything else. But that perception means that it's hard to find mainframers. And so we have this gap. We have a shortage of skilled professionals coming into the market, and we really are scrambling to kind of train up new mainframers and whatnot. At the same time, people are retiring and going out the door. So there's a question in the chat. Maybe I'm gonna defer getting into that. It's an excellent question, by the way. I do want to kind of discuss some of the implications around ChatGPT, but let's I'll definitely come to this when we at the right point in the presentation. So, anyways, that's the skills gap. Now, at the same time, if you have been following the news, Oh, actually, before I get to there, so at the same time with the mainframe, not only is it hard to find people, there's a gap in the market, getting them to learn how to be efficient in terms of working on the platform is difficulty. There's a large learning curve. There's specific tools that they have to learn how to use. The operating system is completely different from anything they would be familiar with, like if they're using Linux or using Windows or things like that. Mainframe programming languages and architecture can be complex and hard to learn. So an example of that is if any shops have high-level assembler, it's a very low-level language that requires quite a bit of time to get good at programming. We don't necessarily have a whole ton of mainframe technology being exposed to new students in schools. And with people retiring, people are, potential mentors are going out the door. So the other thing too is that mainframe, it's not something that you just have a mainframe in your basement and you can play around with it and, you don't care if you break it. Generally, where a mainframe is, it's running some of the most critical systems in some of the biggest organizations. So, you don't want to really necessarily experiment with something like that. You have a high risk of breaking critical systems. So there's also a large risk aversion mindset. Okay, so the learning curve is difficult. Now, what I was going to say is if you followed the news, you've probably heard about something called ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a chatbot that is basically was released in November 2022. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and essentially it's a large language model that was trained on a massive amount of data, basically the text on the internet. And it's essentially an AI that you can converse with and ask questions. It's available for anyone to use freely. I've put a link here in the presentation. And it's from a company called OpenAI, which is a research company that aims to develop and promote AI and has partnerships with big tech companies like Microsoft, IBM, Google, etc. So ChatGPT, when they released it, it kind of very quickly became heralded as the arrival of AI for the masses, because everybody can just go in, log in, and start trying it. And if you've tried it, you've probably been somewhat amazed, at least I was. And to that end, it made a lot of news. It had 1 million users already after 5 days of availability. To put that into context, Facebook, that goal took about 9 months from when it was released. So it accelerated quite a bit. And I believe I saw a stat recently that they're already at 100 million users. So it's quite amazing how it's grabbed the cultural zeitgeist, and people are already in there playing with it. It was the AI, and ChatGPT was a big topic at Davos recently. So there's lots of new news as well. I mean, if you've followed Microsoft's announcement, I think it was maybe 4 days ago, they've already taken ChatGPT 4. The one that was released in November was ChatGPT 3.5. So they've got a new version of it, which is actually not only trained on this massive amount of data, but also is continually being trained and scraping the web. They've integrated that into their Bing search engine. So it's a limited beta, but you can actually go over to Bing right now, and you can see they have a chat tab, and you can get onto the list if you want to try the beta. But, as a result of that, Google has announced that they're integrating their chat AI engine, I believe it's called Bard, into their search as well. So, ultimately, people see this technology as transformative, and rightly so, because it's quite interesting. Rather than searching and crawling through links and trying to find information, you can ask questions and it can answer it. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like for mainframe. Why is this going to help in the world of mainframe? So, ultimately, to me, ChatGPT is like having a very, very smart mentor that can talk about any topic for as long as you want without tiring. Okay. What's also cool is it can do it in all the languages, right? So it's been trained in a whole bunch of different languages. So if you have if you're coming to talk about, your question, and you want to ask that question in your native language, you absolutely can, and it will answer in that. Also, interestingly enough, it totally understands programming languages. So it's not just human languages, it's programming languages. And of course, mainframe languages are not an exception. So, you can ask it. So here's an example here that I've screen capped, where I asked it to write a super memory efficient high-level assembler program to check if a string was a palindrome. And you can see that it happily obliged. It even formats it for you, and syntax highlights it, and you can copy the code, presumably to paste into an editor. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. I've got some samples that I've recorded, some video clips of this, but you can see that this would be really useful for a newbie who's starting out and wants to kind of get guidance, or maybe something to guide them along the way as they're trying to do something with a mainframe programming language. So let's see here. Moving along. What else can it do? It can help with configuration. So if you have questions, for instance, like this one, where I say, describe in detail how I set up a CICS region, you can ask that and it will oblige writing out instructions for you. And you could, the other thing that's really neat about it is that it is doing so in the context of a thread or a chat. So first of all, if you want to, for instance, let's say in here where you say, describe how to set up a CICS region, and it gives you a list of steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you say, I want more detail on number 2. It knows what you're talking about because it's conversing with you, if you will. So you can ask it to dive down and drill in deeper on, specific topics. And it can basically be like a conversation. It knows JCL, for instance, so you can get it to write JCL for you if you'd like. So all these things are possible. Definitely, I think this is something that can help a lot with skills, but there are caveats to it. So let's go to the next slide here. Also, of course, the minute ChatGPT came out, it did not take long before people had integrated this into IDEs. So if you go, I think there's maybe, at least last time I checked, there's 4 or 5 ChatGPT extensions out there for Visual Studio Code. So you can just write in your editor, you can right click and highlight something and ask it to explain code. You can ask it to, write tests. You can ask it to find bugs, and we're going to see some of these use cases in action. But of course, the pairing of the ability to work with programming languages and being integrated into your IDE is a powerful combination. All right, so let's talk about some caveats or limitations, and then maybe we'll go to the question that that was posted into the chat. So one of the things I want to make people aware of is, first of all, it's limited by the data that it was trained on. Now, ChatGPT 3.5 was trained, if you go into their site, they say it was trained and has no knowledge of anything post 2021. So that was the date, obviously, that they used as the cutoff for the training. Apparently for ChatGPT 4, though, ultimately it's going to be continuously scraping the web and continuously evolving. So that limitation is probably going to be gone in more current iterations. But the ChatGPT that they have on to try freely at OpenAI, that one's limited by 2021 data. The other thing is the way these things work. They're statistical models, and because of that, they can sometimes generate nonsensical or irrelevant data. And in fact, I'm going to be talking about some examples of that. So the way I liken to this is it's basically like I mentioned before. It's like having a mentor who's really, really smart and can talk about everything. But I think the analogy that works for me is that mentor is like super overconfident, right? They will tell you with the utmost confidence that this is the answer. But, very many times, especially in my experience from doing this for this demo, it is often wrong, and we'll see some examples of that. So you need to be, you need to validate what you're being told. You can't just take it at face value, but it certainly does help guide you. But it is not an AI agent. It doesn't have the ability to reason or take action or anything like that. It's basically processing text, right? It's processing text and reiterating things. It's amalgamating text that it was trained on. So let's so that's kind of the caveats, and I think it's a big one, and you're going to see in the demo that I'm going to do that it's actually maybe not talked about enough. Maybe it's a function of the fact that mainframe doesn't have as much text out there as, say, Java code and things like that. But definitely, as I was trying to do the demo, I ran into challenges trying to get things to make basically correct answers. So we have a comment, another maybe potential limitation. So for businesses with IP, how will product design security be protected, considering information is being passed on to a player that collects, stores, and processes information being passed to it? That is a great question. And in fact, so one of the things, ChatGPT is obviously freely available, open to everyone, and not limited to use cases, so to speak. You can ask it whatever you want, but you do have to be aware that what you're asking it is being passed to it and can be used to train it further, right? So one thing I wouldn't do, for instance, is take my code, like my production code, and just put it into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it. That would be definitely a problem, because effectively you're handing the IP over to a third party. Now, there are tools out there that you can use, and for instance, one of the areas I think that we're going to see more in future is we're going to take these general models, and people are going to take that publicly available general model and turn it into purpose-built commercial models. So for instance, they might take the ChatGPT model, train it more on mainframe, and then offer a service where they'll guarantee to, for instance, maybe not share the information back and forth against all the other people. It's kind of like a multi-tenant cloud, if you will, slices where your data is protected. That type of operation might be friendly for businesses, but as it stands right now, very good point. You have to be aware that whatever you're putting into this, whether it's code to analyze or things like that, you are effectively passing it to a third party, and you have to see if that is going to be allowed by your company. They may or may not. They may have different views on it. I know I've already heard and actually talked to a number of colleagues at companies where ChatGPT has been blocked, presumably for purposes for that very, very reason. So let's see. So great comment, and definitely something that you should be paying attention to. All right. So did I hear a question?
Yeah, no, it's a comment from Abdul saying, I can see the company lawyers jumping up and down.
Absolutely. Now. Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think, again, like I said, some companies have been proactive and blocked it completely. So you have to be careful what you're putting in there. I think, if I was personally, if I was to use this in a real life scenario, not with, code, I would stick to maybe asking questions really. Show me an example, show me, or how do I configure kicks, or, show me an example of making a kicks transaction that updates an account or something like that. And then take that information that it's giving me and use it, but not necessarily pass any company or proprietary IP into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it. Though that is one of the use cases that you can do. I think that's pretty safe. But yes, I can sit until there's like guardrails put up. This is definitely something I would see company lawyers jumping up and down about, not just from an IP perspective, but maybe security perspective, right? Once you start training this and it learns, your proprietary code, it's quite likely that it's going to start using that in answers to other people. So who knows what hackers could do to try and, find out what people are doing if this was used at scale. One thing you'll note when you're working with ChatGPT, if you ask the question in just the right way, you can coax the answers that you want out of it. So I also read an article about somebody so one of the other things is ChatGPT has been trained extensively not to give inappropriate answers. So you can't ask it, for instance, how to make a bomb. It's going to tell you, nope, sorry, I can't tell you that. But, they've done things like, if I was writing a script where the main character makes a bomb, how might he go about doing that? And then ChatGPT will answer. So, it's not perfect. And certainly it can be, coaxed to do things it's not supposed to do. Okay, so let's move on here. What I wanted to do mostly with this is kind of show you some of the art of the possible. So I'll start with my first demonstration, which is writing COBOL code. So we have a demo app that I'm quite happy to put the code into ChatGPT. It's not a real app. So we use this in all our demos. And what I wanted to do is see how good it would be at adjusting this code. So I'm going to play a little video. Now, one of the other things I'll mention is that ChatGPT is it's how do I put it? I would say that it's not necessarily stable at this point in time. 100 million users in a few months. They're scaling things out, but sometimes it works, sometimes it's overloaded. So that's why we're using video snippets. I wanted to capture the liveness of it, but obviously with a presentation, I didn't want to take the chance that ChatGPT would be overloaded or down or anything like that. So anyways, let's go and look at the first video, which is writing code. Okay, so here's ChatGPT. This is what it looks like. And what I've done is I've pasted in a working storage section from my COBOL code. And I'm going to ask it to calculate the total amount for a delivery. Now, what's interesting here is I didn't tell it what I'm delivering. I didn't tell it anything about the app. And you can see that it looked at the actual names and it figured out that I'm delivering something that has a unit price and a gallons, and it knew that that's exactly what I wanted. Right now, what's here? Let me just pause this. So it took it analyzed this snippet of working storage variables, figured out that WS gallons plus times the unit price would be a total amount. It also inexplicably decided there were some additional fees. So I don't know where that came from, but then it also tells me if I want to use additional fees, I have to define it in my program. But you get the idea. It's pretty incredible that it was able to infer from this that I needed to do that. And it writes the COBOL statement to compute this into a total amount variable. So pretty cool. So I'll hit play here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to integrate this into my code. So I don't want to take everything in there, but I'll go into my VS Code. We'll add the new variable, format it because got to make things pretty. And then I'll go on to the next part where I want to kind of check that variable. And I'm going to actually compile this code and see if it works. So there we go. So now my next question is going to be, oh, actually, yeah, I want to go ahead and do the computation. So we'll do that. So I'll move it down here close to where I'm going to use this. And actually what I'm going to do is try and get this variable to display a different value depending on the total amount of the delivery. Okay, so we'll format it. Get rid of this imaginary additional fees that I don't know why it's deciding we have some, but anyways, there we go. And then I'm going to ask it to check this. So I'm giving it some more variables that are in a copybook associated with a customer account. And then I told it to write me a snippet of COBOL to see if the customer account has enough money to cover the charge. So here it is, happily obliging. And it's giving me a snippet of the COBOL code. And it's using display. Now in mine, I don't want to use display. I have a variable, so I'm going to do some adjustments here. And it's telling me that, if it should be, the total amount should be calculated somewhere, which is what we did in the first part. Okay, so I'll take that and we will put it in here and adjust our message accordingly. Now, I have a little test associated with this, and one of the things the test looks for is the message account updated successfully. So my message is going to be slightly strange. I'm going to still say account updated successfully, even if they don't have enough money, but then I'll just say that it's a negative balance. And that's just because of the test. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, while this is playing out, I want to talk about some of the challenges I had here. While this might seem pretty cool, I mean, to me it does. I'm honestly always blown away by how well this works. Say when you compare this to, early attempts at chatbots, but it was not easy. So I tried many questions, prompts, scenarios. I had it trying to write my account updated successfully message and append in, the total amount. And it was using, for instance, concatenation operators from Java. And then when I told it, hey, that's not the right concatenation operator, it would say, oh, yes, you're right. And then it would show me some concatenation operators from C. So clearly, it's wrong sometimes. And we'll look at some examples. I think that's the exact example that I picked. But, definitely, while this is pretty cool, I can run this test, I can build it, I can put in, the code that it suggested, and get the expected results. It's not always going to be right. I think that's just a function of it that hasn't really, had enough training on mainframe. So down the road, who knows? Maybe with large language models like ChatGPT that are used purposely for coding, something similar to what GitHub has done with Copilot, it might give better results in future. All right, so there we go.
We have a comment for your information from Peter. Don't know if you want to respond back.
Let's do that. Absolutely. Yes, the new skill set will be prompt master. You're absolutely right. And honestly, when I was doing this for this presentation, I spent far more time trying to prompt it to get the answer I was looking for than it would have taken me to just write the code. So it didn't actually improve any productivity. But I suspect if you are a prompt master, you could probably get it to do what you want pretty quickly. But yes, it's definitely a new skill set that you have to master. So the good news is this is an incredible productivity tool, but the even better news is we're not all going to be in the bread line together looking for new jobs. We definitely need people in the mix still. So that's, to me, a good thing. But anyways, let's go to the next scenario. So that was writing code. So the next one I want to show you is finding bugs. And again, I had a very mixed experience here. So let's play the video and then I'll talk a little bit about what this does. Okay. One sec here. All right. So for this one, what I did is I used the ChatGPT extension for VS Code. So I picked a section of code and I asked it to find bugs. So there you go. There's the find bugs menu. Now, let's see what it comes back with. So it takes a few minutes. Sometimes you can see, again, that's a function of how much load there is. All right. So the code does not address the case where both the delivery entries and payment entries are non-zero. The code does not validate if date, the month +1 is a valid month. The code assumes that all months have 30 days because it adds 1 to the current month and so on. So, okay, that's kind of cool. Here I'm going to actually put a more obvious bug and check to see if the month is over 50 and see if it detects that. And here we go. And it's going to say something very similar. You don't typically have months over 50, so it knows that. So pretty good. But again, mixed experiences. I put in obvious bugs, syntax errors, stuff like that, that should be easy to pick out, and it totally couldn't pick that out as a bug. So, it's don't use this to replace your static analysis tool. It's interesting to get its analysis on things, but it's not going to find all the bugs. Now, I have a question or a comment. Let's see.
Yeah,
I just asked ChatGPT this question. Can you generate Java code that will import the complete SMF type 30 record fields and create an object that can be queried for the imported values? And it did it. So awesome. So there you go. Sometimes you hit pay dirt, other times not so much. So again, you need to take this for what it is. It's a productivity tool. It is not the new, you're not going to fire all your mainframers and replace them with this. That's for sure. But definitely it does some pretty cool things. All right, so let's look at the next scenario here. And here we go. Okay, explaining code. So let's have a look at this one. So we'll go in here, and this is one maybe you know, Abdul, you pointed out that lawyers would not be so happy about. But maybe snippets like this one, where I've got an exec kick statement and I want to understand what it's doing, you know, that might be a little bit safe. But if you were to, for instance, take the entire, you know, element here that you're working with and just dump it into ChatGPT, maybe not such a good idea. So in any case, you can see here, it says the code's written in kicks, helpfully explains what the acronym is. And it says the receive statement retrieves data from a channel specified by the map option. If the information of the data is stored in a map named SlickMD, the COM response returns a response code that indicates the result of the channel operation. Cool. And now we're going to do a kicks read statement. Let's see. And while we're waiting for this, you know, just as Wendell did, I would totally go out and play with this if you haven't. It is totally easy to lose 6 hours of your day playing with it, though, and seeing if you can. It's almost like playing Stump the Chump, if you will. It could be quite addictive, but it is definitely fun and cool to see, you know, where we are with AI as a society. Okay, so seems pretty reasonable here too. So again, I mean, overall, I think it's better in a way at explaining things than it is at generating things. It seems to mix up languages and things like that. So maybe that's a use case, but again, you'll want to be careful what you ask it to explain, because you are putting code out into the public domain when you do that. All right, so demonstration number 4, general queries. So let's have a look over here. So this is an example of just basically asking it questions on how to do things for mainframe. And I think this could be quite useful for new mainframers, especially, right? If they're faced with trying to understand things and they don't want to have to go hunting through links and try and find it. So the question I asked it here is, describe the overall structure of JCL steps. So job control language is used to describe and control batch processing in an IBM mainframe. It consists of 3 basic components: job, exec, DD. That's pretty cool. Okay, and it contains other JCL statements as conditionals, control statements, commenting statements, and so on. So good overview there. And now I've asked it, hey, give me an example. So let's see what it does. So very happily, sure. Here's a simple example of a JCL job that runs a COBOL program. So there we go. You can see it's putting in a pretty simple JCL, but it certainly illustrates the concept. And then what's cool is it explains it in a bit more detail. By the way, one thing that a colleague of mine always does is he always likes to thank ChatGPT when it answers its questions. And his reasoning is that if the AI overlords ever come, they'll remember his politeness. So maybe something that you could do as a best practice as well. Anyways, let's see, what did we ask it here? Where does the output normally go? So let's see what it says. The output's typically sent to one or more data sets defined using DD statements. The most common type of output is the program listing, which is sent to a sysprint DD statement. The sysprint DD statement is automatically assigned to a system print device, a printer that is used to program, that you produce the program listing. Oh, it's going fast. The output can be directed to disk by specifying a file instead of sysout equals star. So they give an example. And it also explains the disposition parameter, which is pretty cool. So all in all, take what it's saying with a grain of salt. You might want to double check once you're sure that you understand it to make sure your understanding is correct, but I'm very good at answering questions, general questions.
Vaughan, it's Jeff here. This is one of my questions, actually.
Okay, fire away.
Given what Abdul said earlier, obviously, but with taking that into consideration, you could actually get it to do JCL checking effectively, could you not?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's JCL checking is similar to the find bugs. Will it find everything? I don't know if it's going to replace your JCL checking utility, but it's certainly a good sanity check. And if again, if the JCL is not something that you want, for instance, if you're giving the name of production data sets and things like that in the JCL, that might not be so good. to put out into the public domain. But nonetheless, I kind of think of, you know, as long as you stick to abstract notions that you're going to translate to your environment, right? You know, ask it questions in a way that has nothing to do with specifics that could be traced back to the way that, you know, you as an organization operate. I think you're pretty safe.
Very much.
Yeah.
You have another question.
Yeah. Will it learn from public script libraries, Zoe? So definitely, yeah, definitely don't want to let ChatGPT access your RACF or system catalog. In terms of Zoe, so we've been playing around with this here at Broadcom, and we most definitely ask it a bunch of Zoe questions, and it definitely knows things about Zoe. Again, not always right, but it was interesting to see one of the people that was, you know, looking at this mentioned that it kind of suggested a syntax for a Zoe command that really actually hinted at a new feature that would be very nice to have in Zoe. They're like, huh, that would be, it's not right, but that would be a cool option to add into this Zoe command. So, you know, but to answer the question, ChatGPT, the one that's out there right now, 3.5 that you can go and play with, it's not learning from anything new. It definitely was trained on Zoe script repositories and documentation and so on. ChatGPT 4, though, the one that Microsoft's released as part of Bing, again, in a limited trial, but eventually presumably available for everyone, will be continually scraping the web. So it most definitely will be learning from those types of things. And essentially, from what I've seen, if it's out there in public, it was included in its training. So I would say yes. All right, so let's go to the last demonstration, which is, let's see what it looks like when it's wrong. So we'll go ahead here. Yeah, another combination or another point, a private ChatGPT within an organization would be awesome. And I think that's where, again, this one is public, everybody can use it, but it's also free. I think the economic opportunity is going to be very much like what you're saying, Neil. Essentially, yeah, you can go and do whatever you want with the public one. They'll probably take the data that you're feeding it and use it to further train it. One of the things, by the way, you can do is you can say, hey, you were wrong. And then it, you know, presumably, and if enough people do that, it'll stop suggesting those answers. It'll get smarter and smarter. So I think that kind of is the trade-off. You give it the data, you give it the training, but they're going to take that and they're going to commercialize it and maybe have private options for organizations where, you know, they don't necessarily want to contribute the data and so on. So, but I would agree with that comment, Neil. All right, so let's look here. This is me taking a snippet of working storage fields and trying to get it to concat. This is the one I was talking about. Is I was trying to concatenate into the message in my my Slick Oil demo app here. The account updated successfully. So I'm taking this snippet. I'm going to add that in. And let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll add that. So we're going to say update the following snippet. So the delivery date is appended to the account updated successfully message. So let's see what happens. Pardon me, I got a bit of a cold, so I'll take a drink of water here. I was thinking. Now, here's another interesting thing I've noted. Sometimes ChatGPT formats your response and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what drives that, but I guess if it's a significant enough piece of code, it'll do that. Now, this looks reasonable. However, you'll note those concatenation operators. Those are not concatenation operators for COBOL. And when I paste this into my COBOL language editor, you'll see all the squiggly lines and whatnot. So, you know, it's clearly understands COBOL, but is mixing some of the constructs in it with other languages it knows and so on. And so actually, here's a comment from Wendell. He asked ChatGPT, will it continue to be free? So let's see what it said. It said, OpenAI's plans for the pricing of its language models, including ChatGPT, have not been publicly announced. Currently, ChatGPT is available through the Open AI API, which is a free tier. Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting to note there, so I would say that's most definitely an accurate answer, is that OpenAI itself bills itself as a research not-for-profit company. So, actually, funny story, when this first kind of went live, I have to admit, I was quite blown away. And being the greedy guy I am, I was wondering how I invest. So I was looking to see if they have a stock. But no, they are a research company, not for profit. And everybody chatting about this said the best plan is to invest in the companies that are funding OpenAI and that will be integrating this tech. So, the Microsofts, the Googles, the IBMs, et cetera. So, I think the monetization is actually going to come from other parties. I think ChatGPT will continue to be the research arm, if you will, that will just, try to improve the technology. But I think the partners are going to be the ones that are monetizing it. And if I recall correctly from what I heard about Microsoft, they're going to give you a limited number of free chats per month or something like that. So first of all, you'll have to sign into Bing to use it, and you won't be able to, ask all day, all along. They're going to throttle it. Who knows if it'll stay that way or if they'll add paid tiers that, remove that limitation. Okay, so that's pretty much it. In summary, what I would say, in my time playing with it in the context of mainframe and with skills gaps, is it is an absolutely incredible productivity tool. I mean, I personally was amazed. I don't know how you couldn't be when you see this. It's certainly an improvement on Microsoft Clippy. It's definitely a lot more helpful. It could help reduce the learning curve for new mainframers. It has different tasks. It's being integrated into development and other tools, but the limitations are most definitely the biggest drawback. You've got to understand that what it's telling you, it's not, it's just using statistical analysis on the language to really create the answers. So some of the stuff that it says is dead wrong. But definitely expect to see more AI models in future aimed at specific niches. Maybe it's mainframe coding. Maybe it's with slices that are specific to an organization that allows the model to work without the data leaving the organization's control. And of course, the last thing I was going to point out is, so when we created this presentation, I actually used ChatGPT to help. So this is one of the authors on this presentation. So apart from that, please do submit your session feedback. And I'm happy to continue the discussion if anybody wants to keep talking on ChatGPT. I think it's pretty interesting development. I think it's going to be impactful in all sorts of ways we probably haven't thought of. So any comments are welcome here. And if not, appreciate your time.
I'd like to say, everybody who's asked questions, thank you very much. I think we have a comment from Abdul.
Yeah, we can still learn from its mistakes. As you said, humans in their field will remain 100%. Yeah, 100%. The other thing too that I would add to that is, if all the humans just stopped doing this stuff, it would be as good as it was in 2021 and no better, right? So it is not making new knowledge. It is regurgitating old knowledge. So definitely humans are going to be critical to making new knowledge, at least at this point in time. Yeah. So any more questions, please? We'll give it a couple of more seconds, 20 seconds or so. Thank you, Wendell. You're already getting good comments now. So nice. that leads me on. Please, feedback. And I think this is a subject area that we need to cover more in certainly the November session, and also possibly the next virtual session. So yeah, absolutely. I hope you'll come back. Absolutely. I think, and we'll have it. Well, I'm sure we'll all have an update. November is a long time in the world of AI, I think. So it'll be interesting to see where we are in November. So this is the final sessions for the GSE for this virtual conference. So I'd like to take thanks. Sorry, Wendell's asked, any thoughts about integrating it into a KICS program? Yeah, that's a great question. So there are APIs available. you could call it, I'm sure. So yeah, could you have a green screen ChatGPT client? You probably could. Could you use it in a Kix program? I'm sure you could. I don't know if anyone's tried that. There's the APIs slightly differently than the client that they have there. The APIs, at least the last time I saw, were paid. So you have to pay money to use them. By the way, ChatGPT is integrated into the Azure Cloud AI web service. So, well, not ChatGPT, but GPT is. So yeah, there's going to be definitely people putting it into the products. I know Microsoft has also already announced that, the next rev of Office is going to have ChatGPT integrated into it. So yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this stuff built into programs.
Yeah, Peter's made a comment as well, and I kind of agree with that. I'm sure you have your comments on that as well, Vaughan.
Yeah, absolutely. No, good point. And Google has their Bard, and it had a problem with the launch, but once they start, I'm sure they'll fix that. And ultimately, I mean, ChatGPT also has its share of errors, but when we see Bard, ChatGPT, God knows what else, specialized clients coming on, there's just going to be more and more players in the market, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this technology. And what we're talking about today is generative AI for mainframe code, but there's also the whole subject of generative AI for things like music, art, etc., that are also making massive strides. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in a year when it's all integrated into our Office tools. Our presentations might be a lot slicker.
Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. This session is recorded, as I explained at the start, and will be made available. I'm not sure when. I believe it'll be a couple of days, because I know the guys edit it and what have you, but it will be available, and you'll be able to download it by looking at the agenda. And Vaughan, thank you very much for sending the presentation as part of the speaker notes. So it's the presentation is actually there. If you just click on agenda and go to attachments, it's there. We have another question. I don't know who AK is, sorry.
Let's see. Do you have experience with GitHub Copilot and writing JCL COBOL or something like that? So GitHub Copilot definitely is another thing we've been playing with. My role is as a product manager for Endeavor at Broadcom, and there was actually a question in our community about potentially using Copilot. Could you integrate Copilot with Endeavor? So I mean, that's super interesting to me. The one big thing I think is the caveat that Abdul put in: would organizations. So Copilot right now, it works very much like ChatGPT. When you use it, if you're asking it things, you are effectively taking code that is part of your organization and passing it to, an engine that can analyze it. And so there's concerns around IP and so on. And I would think that would only be amplified for mainframe code. So that's a question that, we're exploring. Could we, have an integration where maybe an organization's COBOL would be fed into a private model? That capability I don't think exists yet in GitHub Copilot, but certainly I would think that at some point that may be something people ask for. But the technology itself is pretty amazing. And specifically, what's interesting about that is, so it's using a large language model similar to GPT, but it's not. It's actually a specific coding language model. So it was trained specifically for coding. So that's an example of one of those niche models that can be used for a better results with more of a purpose in mind rather than a general AI.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but definitely I think all of these things, if you can go and play with them, you should, because it's quite illuminating.
Yeah. Okay, well, and any more questions? We'll give it a couple more minutes. A big thank you on that one. So great. Thank you very much. Give it a couple more minutes in case somebody's typing, or not minutes, a couple more seconds, I'd say. We've got plenty of time anyway. Okay, I'm going to bring it to a head. I'm going to close the session down. Vaughan, thank you very much. I personally have finished on a high. This has been a fantastic presentation, given me some insight as well. So thank you, and I'm sure everybody
Absolutely.
on the session. So thank you, and have a good day in Toronto.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Take
Cheers.
care, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.